We are live, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good.
How are you?
All good. Ready for another productive day of streaming?
To be honest, I spend my whole week just waiting for you to call. And I never leave this room. I'm just in here. I wish I could show you, but it's basically a cupboard. And yeah, I just wait for your call. And if I'm lucky, one of my children pushes food under the door just to my left. And I get fed with a straw or something. But yeah, no, we're okay. Everyone's getting furloughed. Well, actually, we're not because we're freelancers, so we get nothing. But the rest of the world's getting furloughed till October, so that's exciting. We can discuss that. We will discuss audio, but as I said, I think as we spoke earlier, this is a conversation. We can discuss cameras. We can discuss the industry. We can discuss whatever you like. I'm putting no limits. I mean, I might lie to you, but I'm putting no limits on the discussion that we could have here in our lovely little group together. I have brought back the whiteboard of wonder, where if I'm asked a question, I will try and explain it not only with words, but with a poorly drawn diagram, as that's the way my mind thinks. So we can talk about audio. Anything you want to bring up, Jake, before I start waffling? Anything that you feel you need to share with the group?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we've already got a question on YouTube. We could just start with that if you want.
Yeah, let's take that. I'm happy for people to talk to me, or you can relay them, whatever you want to do.
I'll relay it. So it's a guy called Certain Exposures on YouTube said,
I like that. What is your favourite certain exposure?
Will you possibly cover sound treatment for small spaces where also you will be filming? And basically then also talking about mixing music and dialogue. Let's start off with soundproofing small spaces.
Soundproofing small spaces. We're just making sure that you don't get that reverb, controlling that sound. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how small a space he's talking about. Is he literally talking about, I don't know, the inside of a car or something like that? If you're in a very small space, you're probably going to want to lav because you're very tight. In some ways, I think small spaces are less of a problem than larger ones with greater bounce. Do you know what I mean? In that sense, because if the walls are absorbent, or you have, a flag up or something that can absorb that audio, you're normally okay. But if in doubt, lav it if you're very tight and very small. I would also hazard a guess that he won't be filming in a small space unless he's on his own for quite some time. Because you'll need a slightly bigger space and a longer lens, this is something we should actually talk about just generally for the industry, is what are we going to do? How are we going to reinvent ourselves so that we can still go to our clients, we can still go to our agencies, and we can actually make stuff for them in a way that they feel safe and the talent feels safe. And so hopefully we can still make a living. That's quite an important one. And what was the other part of the question? Sorry, the second part.
And mixing music and dialogue together.
Yes, and in fact, I love to mix music and dialogue together. The key thing, in fact, I have to say in my edits, and in any edit, the nice thing about doing an edit is I try and get the track before I start cutting. It's a real pain if you're doing a job for a client and you know they're going to put music on it, but you don't know what the music is and you start cutting. Because you almost have to kind of redo it if you don't have that guide track at the beginning. As soon as you have the music, you get the feel, you get the flow. And once you have that flow, then you can hopefully edit to that point. The other point I would make strongly about music is it can hide a multitude of sins. So if I was to show you here, the first terrible drawing of our time together, oh, I heard some feedback there. There we go. Is that if this is someone speaking and this is someone speaking, and so that's their voice, my audio track would obviously go down and then up and then down and then up, but it wouldn't go to zero here. Okay, it would probably be, and I'm guessing because I don't know what the track is, it would probably be about minus 25 in FCPX. Okay, and then it might come up to, I don't know, 0 or wherever you felt it, minus 5 here. Do you know what I mean? So that bed of audio, bed of music, lies underneath like a nice mattress. and that hides any noise or nastiness that you may have got in your original your dialogue audio. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I love music. Of course, once you've got it, you can then fashion your edit to hit the points on the music of whatever happens to choose. And one last point I will say about music, and this is what I call the this goes back to editing, but it's a good point. I call this the circle of hell. Okay, and I shall explain why it's called the circle of hell. There's a point here, and you go around here, and you come back to here. This point is the start point in your edit when you've done your first edit and you deliver it to your client. The client then shows it to their committee in their agency, and they talk amongst themselves, change things, and 2 weeks later, hey presto, you have returned to the same point that you offered to your client 2 weeks previously. I call this the circle of hell. There are two things you must do with this. You must first of all charge for this time, because if you do, that circle gets a lot shorter, funnily enough, because they have to pay for it. But more importantly is give them an audio choice, give them a second audio choice, this is music, but if they can't make their minds up, give them the name of the library and say, do you know what, guys, you provide the audio, I'll cut it to that, because otherwise you can get trapped in this place where you just go round in circles, giving them constantly different options, which is something you don't want. So yeah, onward, Jake, onward. Any more?
Adrian, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. It looks German.
Yeah, he's trouble, that one.
I'm a big fan of your work, Mr. Marks.
I wish I could say the same, but I just can't. I'm a big fan of his too. Does he have any questions? Because he needs a lot of help with audio.
Oh, we'll see what he says.
You see what he comes back with. Exactly.
I did just say in Discord as well, if anyone wants to chime in and say hello, like simply just unmute your mic if you do want to talk and
you can abuse me because I'm here.
That's the point of Discord. Here. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So we did go through some basic stuff last time. We can go through it again. I'm happy to share that with you if you'd like to do that. We could talk about we could talk about camera news today, couldn't we? ProRes RAW.
ProRes RAW.
Zcam.
Coming on everything.
Coming on everything. Everything. Literally every camera you've ever thought of will have ProRes. Will have ProRes RAW in 4 weeks or something like that. Or I'm joking, but obviously. But that's interesting. So will it become the new standard? Are we all gonna end up doing that? And then here's a problem. If every camera, I was talking about this earlier, if every camera has ProRes RAW, what differentiates the cameras? It's kind of, because up until this point, when you buy a camera, you normally buy a camera because it's better than the old camera or the different camera. But when they all have ProRes RAW, perhaps ergonomics, the way they're designed, other things will become more important because they all kick out a very, very, very good quality source. Of course, that only works if you're in FCPX. It's no use if you're not editing in FCPX. So
it is in Premiere now in the beta.
I have heard that, but I will not go down that road. Thank you. I'm working on a Mac. I'll stay in FCPX and DaVinci, but I don't mind people who do. It's funny. Edit software is a bit like religion, isn't it? Everyone gets very tetchy.
I don't know, like, because yeah, I'm a sucker for Premiere at the moment. I hate it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I know so many editors that do. It's just a necessary evil at the moment. Like Final Cut, I've never really used. I think the last one I used was 7.
I learned on 7.
Yeah.
I went back to school. I did a whole week in a class. This showing my age a little bit. And I learned on 7. And then just as I was getting good on 7, they replaced it. And I swore a lot, but I have kept the faith. And actually, we've had, I don't know, 20, 30 upgrades. I can't even remember how many updates there've been. It's not the same software it was a long time ago.
So yeah, I use Premiere mainly, and then me and Joe really want to try and take everything over to Resolve.
Yes.
I don't think it's quite there yet. I think it's getting very close. And for a free piece of software, it's incredibly well fleshed out. I think the main thing for me in terms of the workflow that we have is I don't like how, what I love about Adobe, the Creative Suite, is the ability to switch between all the programs really quickly. So the fact I can put up, I can have an After Effects comp in my Premiere Pro timeline. If I can open Audition and import that, it's just so quick to do those things for like one man, two man editing teams that do the kind of content we do anyway. That's a very powerful feature. Whereas Resolve, I mean, it's the new kid on the block. It's so much better designed from a hardware perspective. Like, you're not massively bottlenecked by having multiple cores with lower clock counts. Your GPU actually gets used effectively. Like all these amazing things that Premiere doesn't do.
I think the viewers can understand that you're incredibly more complex and intelligent than I am, because we're talking about CPUs. All I know is that my old iMac, 5K iMac from 6 years ago, will do 6K off my S1H. Okay, will do ProRes RAW, and that's because FCPX is obviously optimized for Mac. Yeah. So it does a lot of the crunching under the hood. I also personally like the fact, being a cheapskate, that I own it, and I can add all these little cheeky software plugins that make me look better than I am for about $40. So I have, we have a plugin for everything. Yeah. Graphics department, that will be that plugin there. That we just drag onto there. So that makes it a lot easier in terms of turning around stuff very, very quick. Their audio, the way that you could split the audio and take it up and down, has also got a lot better, the multi-track stuff in FCPX, than when it was at the beginning, when it was quite rightly criticized as iMovie Pro. But it is no longer that. It is now, people have cut features. I think editing software, it's very much, it's one of those things, people get tribal, but of course it all does the same job.
Yeah.
Ultimately, capture, edit, output. Capture, edit, output. That's all we're doing all day long. What's all we were doing. Now I capture, have a cup of tea, go to bed. Capture, have a cup of tea, go to bed. That's all I do, really, basically.
Yeah. It's funny how you bring up the S1H as an example.
Oh,
so
when I've got one on the floor.
Because you've had to play with the ProRes RAW and I haven't, and it's very upsetting.
I can talk about the ProRes RAW. Yeah. In fact, I can bore you even more,
because
and tell you it's my image of the deer on the actual thing. Oh, yes, nice. Exactly.
But this camera, this was the start of my pure hatred for Premiere. So
was that 10-bit?
When we shot the review for it, we only had the camera for like a very short period of time, and the turnaround was incredibly quick. So I think we only had like a few days to cut and edit everything. And basically it got to the Friday. I think it was the embargo was. I think it was that Friday. And and basically I ended up staying a little bit late at the office, which we can't normally do. I ended up taking the RAID home, my computer from work home, my monitor from work home, finishing it. I finished it, I think, at about midnight on the Friday, hit render. I then set my alarm to wake me up after about...
You're taking me back to the 90s.
Honestly.
This is rendering.
Hit render.
Yeah.
And it was a 2.5 hour render. Because I had like so many different flavors of codecs in there, because obviously when we do the camera tests, we have different cameras in there. So it wasn't just S1H, and it was a lot of S1H footage, but like it was a mix of red footage, of S1H, C200, blah, 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 everything. Hit render, set my alarm for 2.5 hours, woke up, it had crashed. It's like, great. So that was about 2:30 in the morning. It's a warp stabilizer crash. So I find that clip, turn off warp stabilizer, hit render, set my alarm for 2.5 hours, wake up again, it's crashed again. and that happened 4 times over the course of the evening. And then I finally turned off every single warp stabilizer in the edit, and it went away.
Like
and I was,
went away.
Oh mate, and bear in mind, it's like this is like a 30-minute review, so it's trying to find which clip, and even it gives you a timestamp in the error, but it just wasn't that clip. It just, and I was like, what's happening? And then from that point onwards, I was like, we need to really look at Resolve, like, because we do round trip workflows anyway, like when Joe grades the tests and grades the more like creative looking shots. So it's just that integration with other applications that is off-putting, but it's so close.
Test, especially before you go out. I mean, this is my particular rig here, which I don't know if you can see it. I shall try and move it forward so I can just bore you with it here. It's a very little camera, but it's quite heavy. You know, do you know what I mean? It's a big body. So actually, I've ended up with the half cage. I've used cage from 8sin, but actually I've ended up with the small rig half cage because I want to hold the grip on the side. I've then this is the geeky bit that will people who have too much time on their hands. I've managed to hide the bar underneath that comes out, so I can put the follow focus onto here. Does that make sense? But I've still kept it really small. And then of course on top, I've got the best thing that Panasonic actually make for those cameras, which of course is the XLR adapter that plugs straight on top, and it's powered through the camera. And you've got 2 tracks. You've got line, mic, 48. You can set your gain, you can do your filters, and it's just that makes the audio on something small work for me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If you don't have that, of course, you can just use a 3.5 adapter, XLR 3.5. Oh, that's me feedbacking again. Yeah, and then when I've got this here, I go into audio and I would fix the gain for the particular mic, because different mics have different gain levels. So you know, you've got standard or low, depending on how much it needs, and then of course you'd fix your level in there. So it's a good toy. It's a good toy. And ProRes RAW at 6K is bloody amazing. You can pull stills from it. It's scary. It's absolutely scary. It really is. Yeah. Obviously, you've got to build a 2020 color space in FCPX in your library. You've got to build a library in order to play with it in that way. But once you get it into there, you can, well, you can overexpose it and pull it back. It's got enormous latitude as to what you can do with it. And I think more importantly, the data rates are really about the same as ProRes HQ, because it's kind of scalable depending on what you shoot. So the data rates are much more controllable in that sense. Will it become a new standard? I don't know. We've got lots of, I just dropped something, that's what that noise was. We've got lots of different competing RAW formats. Wouldn't it be lovely if they all worked in every edit software? Politics. But that's never going to happen. The politics of that is never going to happen. Never going to happen. I have to say, it's just another option. It's another tool in the box, isn't it? Not every project needs it, but it's lovely to have it there. It really is. You can do a lot with it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to look at the other camera?
Well, we've actually got a couple of questions.
Oh, go on. Let's have that.
So maybe let's do that. So
that's another question.
Why
am I wearing a pink top? Because it's all I could find on the floor. No, go on. What's the question?
So Adrian was asking, how do we handle audio whilst observing? It's actually a serious question. He did initially comment on how gainy your audio was, but he deleted that.
Did he? That's because it's balanced on a box over there, and because my iMac is old, I have to have a USB adapter to get external audio in. There you go. So and I can't use a camera because Discord doesn't like Macs. There you go.
So how do we handle audio whilst observing the 2 meter rule? Shotgun set first and then bring the subjects in. So it's quite an interesting, It
is. I think there's absolutely right. Your labs. Well, I had an idea. Okay, this is maybe a wrong idea, but I think the simple rule about a lab is probably it's close fitted. How are you going to do that? That's not really fittable by you to another person. And then I thought of what happens when dogs go on walks and they do their business. And stay with me here. Do you know those little bags that reverse? I don't even have a dog, but I've seen people do this in the park. What some people are doing is they're taking the lav, they're disinfecting it. Okay, the talent are putting it on, but you're delivering it. Don't laugh. This is a very odd looking thing to do on a stream. They're delivering it in this back to front bag, and then of course when you need to pick it up at the end of the shoot, you use another bag, bring it up, leave it alone, spray the disinfectant in. Half an hour later, take it out. You should be fine. So that is potentially a workaround for labs, but otherwise, obviously, we're looking at booms. Oh, I think I've got something here. Don't laugh. This is more fortuitous than. Don't make any rude comments, Jake. This is my poll. Okay, this is my little poll. We could use a poll. Top tip number 29 is you could spend lots of money on a dedicated boom pole, or you could take an old stills monopod and it does exactly the same job with a quick release on the end. Obviously, the beauty of that is you can still fit this on your motorcycle when you go to work, because obviously you won't be going by public transport or a bus. So I go by bike, and this will fit comfortably on whatever bike I have, and it allows me to have that pole. Now you could use a boom buddy on a stand, so you could set it at fire and forget, and then walk away. Your talent come in and sit down. Or I think this is long enough. This is over 2 meters. You could have an assistant, someone to hold it in. The difference is we don't know how different people are going to be nervous at different levels. Some people might not even want the assistant nearby. I also have one of these little quick releases on a baby stand, and I just can pop the mic on there, almost like it's being held underneath, and withdraw again. And obviously we'll be on longer lenses. It could be quite nice, drop the background more, but you've got to plan ahead. And personally, I have wireless systems. So I've got there's an XLR one, there's one of those, or a G4 for the bigger stuff. Because cables, being a clumsy oaf, I will trip over my cable, or I will put a power lead on it and have a hum. It just gets in the way. So if I can make it wireless between the camera and that mic that you've left out there, that is to something to aim for. The other slightly cheaper option, and I'm so glad Adrian asked this question because I can just talk for days about this. AVX digital. These are, you can tell these are mine, and I can prove it to you because I've actually written on them. And can you guess what that stands for? L and M, lav, mic. Lav mic. So that's the lav one, and that's the handheld mic one. And this, of course, does actually the same job. Again, you could put that on your boom pole or a stand, put it in position, and use the AVX, which is a mighty clever piece of kit. You get about 5 hours on that and about 8 hours on that in terms of battery life. They scuttle up and down the channel, so there's no interference. If there's a problem, it just moves seamlessly. And they really are designed for the idiot in the room, which is me, because you turn one off, it turns them both off. If they get power, they turn on, they pair, and that's a very good solution. A cheaper solution than the bigger stuff as well. So I hope, Adrian, that gives you a couple of answers to that. Do feel free to elaborate if you need to. Is there another question, Jake?
It was literally just that same question again, basically.
Someone else asking.
So yeah,
well,
I guess it is a hot topic at the moment.
I mean, we're all going to ask it. I think we also have to probably communicate this to our clients. God willing, we have some left, because it's one thing for us all to be able to think in our heads how we're going to do it. It's quite another for the client to have the confidence that you have a plan. You know what you're going to do. You've got a solution. They can then, I think it's going to be a confidence issue. They can then, reassure the talent or whoever's there, and you can then all go into it together. It's going to slow everything down. I don't think, I think that's something to say. Also, on a poll, you're not going to be able to do. What's the question? There's the answer. What's the question? You can't do that. You've got to dedicate that to your person out here, and you've got to have another mic here, another source here, a second line in for you, because you can't be doing that. Because if we think about it logically, if I spit on that, I pass it over here, that's probably not what you want to do. Do you know what I mean? We need to keep those mics dedicated for the different people. And it's about trying to work it out in our heads, test that solution, and then share that with our clients. And God willing, if they haven't all been furloughed until Christmas, and hopefully we can ease back in. We do have to be creative, though. I think we have to be creative with cameras as well. Camera positions, using cameras that have app control, zooms that you can go in and out. And I know there are cameras like PTZs, Panasonic PTZs, that are very popular at the moment because they are. I think if you've all seen Grayson Perry, Art Club, God, what a good show that is. And that's, I think, PTZs scattered throughout his studio. So there's no camera crew with him. He's presenting to a robot in theory, and they're all stuck out back with the feeds, editing as they go. And then he's got some mics in there. I think he's got a lav that he puts on, and then he's got some hidden mics around the space. So it's not just us. Productions have to almost redesign how we're going to do it, taking some of the lessons from reality shows and maybe moving them into drama and working out how we do it. Yeah.
Oh, yep. No, you go for it, mate.
Yeah, I can't work out how to type in the questions, so I'm just going to have to unmute myself.
That's all right.
With the PPZ thing,
Yes.
The issue that I'm having is that they all just seem to have 3.5 mm non-locking stereo audio in.
Yes.
Is there any way to get decent sound coming through a PTZ like you're doing with your XLR box?
Yeah, well, actually, funny enough, I'm using a PTZ on Thursday for something. So you're absolutely right. They weren't. I think going down the line, you're going to see manufacturers putting proper audio connectors in them because the market is there, and you've picked up on a problem that is absolutely with them. They were initially designed almost not to do this job. Do you know what I mean? And you're absolutely right. They've only got a 3.5 input. I've got. He says, looking at my desk of shame, I'm glad you can't see that. I mean, the other way is to have a mixer of some description. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. This is slightly expensive. It's a Mix Pre 3 Mark II. And then, of course, that's what you're running your audio off. And you can put a scratch mic on the PTZ or use the built-in one. Do you know what I mean? And that's just to link the footage if you need to. And then you're going to use a mixer of some description, an off-camera recorder to record your audio. I think for PTZs you need to have some form of off-camera audio. The internal recording of audio is not what you'd want. You'd want better.
And if you're doing that live,
I still think you can mix it through there. You could do a live mix, especially if you've got. Depends on your situation. It depends where your cameras are and where your sources are, because the PTZ is not going to be close enough normally to your audio, because if you're doing someone up there and you've got a camera over here, that's obviously no good. You've got to take that feed. You could easily though use, and here's one I made earlier, you could use XS, the cheaper ones. You see these?
Yep.
3.5. Okay. So I could use that to have I think that's about 250 quid. I could have a lav on my Talent, throwing it straight back to camera that way. Do you know what I mean? I think you need to separate the mic from the PTZ, because the PTZ's got mighty zooms, and obviously you can digitally control those. The whole idea is that you put one in a corner, or you have one there and one over there doing different things, and you're zooming in and out on them the whole time, mixing that visual. You're not really going to want your source mic at the camera. It's too far away. The proximity. Yeah,
but you're still going to be going through that 3.5 mm connector, right?
Well,
I'm trying to get audio separately and then sort out the lip sync and so on.
I'm trying to work out different ways. So you could bring it back to a mixer, okay, and add your audio at that point. Do you know what I mean? It depends what kit you've got and how many cameras and how big a live base station you're building. A PTZ might not be the right camera. I mean, equally, you could use ATM Mini Pro with the Blackmagic 4Ks. Do you know what I mean? Because that new switcher works incredibly well with the 6K and the 4K, almost like a mini studio. That might be a better solution than a PTZ. It depends what you're filming and how you're doing it.
Is there any way to pan and tilt decent cameras, if you see what I mean, remotely?
Well, the PTZs can change. They can move, yeah. But other cameras, not really. I mean, unless you had something like a Rhino, one of those Rhino motors.
Yeah, that's the other option.
Or Edelchrome, the production one. The Rhino one's better. That does give you remote control, camera control. Do you know what I mean? So you could choose to pan it or to move it. A little tip which I have discovered with, here's another toy, an FX9. Okay, this is my Battlestar Galactica build, as you can see. The little tip with that is using the CBM app into your phone. I can, and if I put the 28-135 zoom on that camera, which is a full frame zoom, I can actually use that to zoom in and out, and also all camera control. And it's got great autofocus, because you'll need autofocus if you're zooming in, because you'll need face tracking, because like all these things, how complex do you want to get? Because if you've got to pull focus, move the lens, work out how the camera's panning, you're building yourself a lot of things to try and do on a live production. Yeah, I try to have that lock off. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say we were talking about this earlier, but the Z-cams may be quite a nice option as well.
Yes.
That on a on like the Rhino pan tilt zoom, whatever it's called. I can't remember what the exact name of it is, but basically that you can connect that over IP and then control, record everything over IP. So it effectively is very similar to like a PTZ system. And then they're also in their software, they're going to be releasing it so you can essentially use their autofocus with certain lenses and basically click on the image where you want it to focus on your computer. So
I've got another solution for you.
That could be a way to do
it. Do you want another solution? Because there are so many solutions. If I was to show you that is an Atomos HDMI to SDI switcher. And the reason I'm showing you that is it's just on my desk here, but also this links to the Shogun 7. And if you have a Shogun 7, you can have 4 feeds, coming in with a live switcher, all recording, and you can just push the screen for your live to move camera to camera, and you can choose which mic source to be following. So if you've got 4 cameras, you'd have a wide, a mid, a tight, a side, whatever you choose. You can cut between that, but you can keep the audio to source 1, the lav. Do you see what I'm saying? That's feeding into 1 camera. So whichever's your hero audio, you could still be multi-switching on the 7. You can be recording your program, and you could be pushing it out where you can then stream it straight off that one device. That's quite clever. But you do need, if you've got HDMI cameras, a little tip for you though, I've discovered, because I had an S1H, I had a GH5, and I had a G9 all streaming together. Little tip is the first camera, the number 1 camera. I mean, I have got a Shogun over there, but it doesn't make any difference. The number 1 camera, that's your fixed, and the 2, 3, and 4 have to be kicking out the same thing out of the HDMI. So it's no good having, sometimes if you set everything at 25 frames per second on each camera, you might find, as I found on the G9, that it was actually kicking out 50, out of the HDMI. So I then had to turn the other 2 to 50, and then they all played together nice. Because if you've got 4 sources, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first SDI is your hero one, and that's the one that the others all have to be the same as. And then you'll get a full screen, and you can push, but you can pick the audio of whichever one you like. So you can say, I'm going to do multicam, but I'm going to have my audio from the really good boom that's close to my speaker on number 3 or number 4, whatever you want to be. Or you could say, I want to move audio between camera switching. So I could say, no, I actually want to use the mics on the cameras, and I'm going to go to the gallery, which is number 3 and number 4, and I'm going to go back to the side camera, which is number 3, and you can move audio that way. So you have the 7's really good for that. It's just getting to grips with it, but that's a really powerful piece of kit. It also records your program as well. So not only are you throwing the stream out, but you're recording it for you later on if you want to play with it, keep it. So that I hope that there's no one way to skin this cat. There's loads of different ways depending on which cameras you want to use. And as Jake said, 3 small ones locked off may be a more powerful way of telling your story than just one with a motorized head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It just comes down to what is it you're planning? What is it you're planning on shooting? What project?
No, just remote conference type stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that market's going to explode though, because let's face it, we can't go and film dramas. No one can go to the office. We're all going to be working at home. Everyone's going to be doing conferences. At some point, business is going to say, right, a few of you are allowed back into the office. How do we speak to the rest of the world? How do we convey our message to our clients? That's potentially a space in which some of us can try and make a living again, All right. They might do it all on Zoom on a laptop. We have to face up to that. But it'd be nice if we could offer them a solution where we could come in and say, we're going to set up your 3 cameras before anyone's there. We're going to have our little mixing desk in the corner on our own. We're going to have our audio feeds coming in, and we're going to have our switcher, and we're going to stream it for you. And we're also going to record it for you as well. There's your high quality copy afterwards. That is going to be a growth. I don't see that going away. We're just going to have to do it in a different way. I think someone sent me a link earlier in the week to, I think it was an ARRI shoot, where they were all wearing full NCP. They were all wearing like total bodysuits, you know, with a camera. It was a very odd thing to see, a crew dressed like they're at a scene of an industrial accident. I'm hopeful we move on from that and we're able to get into spaces, keep our distance, plan our rig, set out our cameras and our audio, withdraw, operate, people come in, do it, they go, we go back in and remove our stuff, job done.
2 seconds, Jim. I'm just going to restart the server because you're getting a bit blocky. 2 seconds.
Oh, I like being blocky.
All right, and you should be back now, mate. Yeah, it looked much clearer.
That good?
Yeah.
You can see me.
Cool.
You can see me aging before your very eyes. Exactly. Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. That last one was great.
Yeah. I'll be intrigued to see what different solutions people come up with, because there's different pros and cons to
there's different pros and cons, and there's no one way. It's not a silver bullet that you must buy that camera because that's going to work. There are lots of different routes, and some of you will be able to adapt the cameras you currently have to work in this new way. Definitely. Yeah. Yes.
So Phil asked on YouTube, on single op shoots, same with the GH5, what shotgun mic would you mount on the camera when in run and gun mode? And can you mix, is there a way to mix in radio mic and onboard camera audio at the same time? If so, using what?
There's an expensive way and there's a cheap way, and I'm going to tell you both of them. Now, the shotgun that I would use on a GH5 is the 600, which I'm now going to pick up and move towards me. This is dangerous because it's my mic that I'm streaming with, but then you can see it, and Jake doesn't mind if I sound very loud. Right, so if I move this in here, there we go. Here's one here. This was resting just out of shot on a cup. 600, it's got a low cut filter. Most importantly, it's got a battery inside it. Am I a bit loud now, Jake, because it's closer to me?
A little bit.
Okay, I'm going to move it back to the box. Now that you've seen it, I'm going to move it back to the box. Hang on. I'm going to slip that there. Oh, God. It's just fallen off that. Hang on. There we go. No one said this wasn't live. How's that? Does that sound better?
Yeah, better.
Good. Stay. Right. The reason I showed you that 600 is it's about, I think it's under 300 quid. It's 280, something like that. But because it's got a battery inside it, it can power itself, and you can adapt it to the 3.5 on the GH5. So you stick that on top, you can have a very good boom running straight into your 3.5. If you want to spend no money at all, you could take a Joby grip and buy a 3.5 extension cable, and you could grip that onto a chair next to your talent, and you could run that cable back to the camera if someone was far away. Jake's actually yawning because that sounded so boring.
No.
I just wanted to share that with you. But that's a bit cheapskate. How do you get a second feed into that 3.5? If you go on Amazon, I don't think you'll mind me saying this, Jake, and you spend 15 English pounds, you can buy a splitter cable. A splitter cable is 3.5. Okay, so you can have that single source with a splitter, left and right. Okay, and then in theory, you can run a 3.5 onto the left-hand side, and you can run whatever else you want onto the right-hand side. That, however, is the cheap, less good option. I'm going to refer to the thing that I have on the floor for a GH5 user. I'm going to go back to it because it is the best thing they make in terms of accessories. That's what you want. It's the XLR adapter from Panasonic. I don't know how much, I think it's sub 300, but it works on the GH5, it works on the S1, it works on the S1H. It's actually powered by a little gold pin. You can't see it as you can, just there. It's quite clever. So if you look at the top of the camera and you can see the gold pin, it's the gold pin that matches up, that runs the power. So you don't have to put batteries in it. because I will forget batteries. And that is the best, cleanest way to get dual channel audio into a GH5. If you look at the size of it, you can see there's preamps in there that are quite large. I've got a GH5 on the floor somewhere because that's where I keep my cameras. But anyway, let me show you. Yes, look, I can grab one. Hang on, I can grab something else. I'll show you what I mean. This kind of shows. So off the floor here is a G9, which is where I keep my cameras. Okay, you can see the GH5 is very similar. You've got a tiny bit of real estate at the top where they squeeze all the audio. So with the best will in the world, that's going to have much better audio, because look at the size of it. Look how much more size and heat dissipation you've got for preamps in a dedicated unit. So that just slips on top. It won't actually work on the G9. It works on the GH5 S1, S1H. Okay, it'll do line in. So if you're at an event, when we have those again, you can just plug in, get a line feed as well. That's my option. And you've also got filters for noise and wind and stuff like that, all built in. So that is my recommendation for GH5 audio, and in fact all Panasonic mirrorless audio. If the camera will use the XLR adapter, you must buy this, because this allows you to run proper audio. The other joy of the AVXs is how teeny weeny they are, because I can. Well,
I was going to say, with the GH5, you probably want like a half cage at least, and then that way you can get like something small like this.
Yes.
For the wireless side of it, and then on the mic. The on mic just put on the side.
We haven't planned this, but on my floor just here, there is actually a cage for a GH5. It's almost as though whatever you say, it's a bit like Blue Peter. Whatever you want is just within arm's length in the mess either side. So that's a cage. Exactly. You need a cage because you can mount stuff. Actual fact, while we're talking about cages, I'm going to bore you with something else, because I've just found this on the floor. So that's a full-size cage that I would use for the S1H. And as you can see, I put a V-lock plate on there so I can power the camera directly into the USB. And that's got, in fact, this is a good point to make. If you get a small rig cage for the GH5 or the S1 or the S1H, they've designed a top plate, this thing here, this armored bit here. And this armored bit here basically allows your camera to go here, and then your XLR adapter to slot in there, and it can't be damaged. You can't knock it off. You can't kick it. It's actually designed for the unit, so it becomes an integral part of the camera, which means you're far less likely to do what I normally do, which is knock it off while turning or putting it in a bag. It turns it into a solid unit. Cages are essential because you can mount loads of stuff to it, mics, power, all that kind of good gibbons. So good question. Thank you. And that's what we meant about the AVX, how tiny it is. It really is. It's that small. So you can actually run two, and because you can turn it depending on where your cage is, you can have it wherever you need to have it. Comes with choice of 2 labs or the hand mic that we've shown you earlier. Give me another question, Jake. As I delve into...
the guy's on YouTube. Phil's on YouTube, so he's just asking me for. I'm just giving him options.
Are you actually? That's fine.
So basically, just said he's asking about small mid-range wireless lav cassettes. So I said either the XSW set or the Wireless Go, whatever one he prefers.
The nice thing about the XS as well is, yes, you can have a lav, but they also do a version which has an XLR. Yeah. So it'll work with a boom. And in today's world of social distancing, you might not want the lav. You might actually want the boom one, because that's what you're going to have to use a lot of the time.
I want to. Yeah, he just basically said he wants to look like a photographer, not a videographer. So I presume he's trying to keep it small and. Me too. Me too. So another question came up from Andy, and I've kind of responded to it a little bit, but
okay.
It's Sony and Canon. Sony and Panasonic are the only 2 mirrorless companies that do these XLR unit adapters.
Correct.
So Canon currently don't offer it, and this is what I was saying. Is like Canon haven't put that kind of love into their mirrorless series as of late, which obviously with the R5 coming out eventually, that should be
the mystical R5.
Yeah.
Upon which it's like they don't, which is a shame, because it does make that small camera complete. There's an age-old argument that we'll not solve today, which is, do you take a small camera and make it very big, or do you take a big camera and keep it mid-sized with everything on it? And that's an argument for a different time. Money, cost. You have to be careful you don't buy a small camera and then spend so much on the bits that you could have bought a bigger one with all the bits built in. It totally depends on what kind of work you're doing, and how you like to, what kind of lenses. Has a massive impact. I do get excited about all these new mirrorless mounts, L mount, and what we can do. I now have 8 different sorts of lenses, I think, that I can put on an L mount. That's quite a lot of choices. Do you know what I mean? Because of that mirrorless mount. I was on last week talking about the Fujinon MK zooms, and that flexibility of having lenses that you can adapt and that fit on any that will fit on. I've run those lenses on 5 different cameras now, because cameras, as we know, Jake, are baubles that shine brightly and then are replaced by a shinier bauble that shines bright again. So it's a, you know, you've got to try and get some return on investment. Audio is very much, I think I drew it, I'll draw it again because I haven't drawn enough on my board of wonder. We talked about, do you remember the scale of money? You skipped your mind, hasn't it, Jake? Easily done. And I'll draw it here. Here's my little scale, and here we are, and here's one, and here's one. And if you put that much money into your camera budget, that's cameras. This is audio, grip, lighting. I know it's poorly drawn, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Put the same amount of money into here. This will depreciate like a stone. This will depreciate, but hopefully not quite as much as over here. Also, the audio kit, the tripod you get, well, that works with the next 4 cameras you're going to buy. That works and gives you a greater ability for production. It doesn't go away. It doesn't suddenly become less valuable. It doesn't, yes, it doesn't do 8, 12, 16K, but it does give you options. I mean, audio, though, is moving forward. And I think we've talked briefly about Float 32 technology in the Mix Pre 3, which is, to give a very simplistic analogy, is like a wider dynamic range for audio. I think that's how it's the easiest way of putting it. It doesn't remove the dangers of peaking or levels, but it gives you a bigger bucket to collect your audio into and go up and down. Give me another question. Come on, Jake.
Will ProRes RAW be available for the GH5? Oh,
who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe after the Zcam announcement today, they'll feel they should. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It would be lovely if they did, but I don't know. What is really interesting is they've obviously worked out the protocols for HDMI. You have to remember, though, the age of the GH5. And what amazes me is that even today, it's 3 years old. 3 years. That's about 3 years.
It's around that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was the first one to have 4K 422 10-bit internal. And if you look around now, all this time later, yes, there are other cameras that have 422 10-bit internal, but not as many as you'd think, and certainly not for, I think, brand new now, about $1,000. Do you know what I mean? Secondhand, 600 quid. So it's a camera that still holds its own very much today, even though it is, I think we'll all agree on the time scale of camera replacements. I'm sure, and I don't know, I'm sure something will come along that will be an update to it. Yeah.
It's still a hell of a camera.
It's a heck of a camera, and very affordable camera. And the nice thing about it is if you've got one and you put it on, say, natural profile with the sharpening turned down -5, you can have your S1 on the natural profile with sharpening turned down -5, because you don't need to sharpen your footage, and they'll intercut perfectly. Boom. You don't have to go and buy another camera as a B cam. If you buy a more expensive camera and it's got the same color science, you've got a very easy route to multicam with the same color, in the same codecs and the same feel. I have to say, when it came out, the difference for me was the 10-bit 8-bit internal. Yeah. This is before RAW. Just to have, once you've shot 4K 10-bit, not even the full fat, not even the 400 megabit, which is the highest quality, you can go down one level get reasonable data rates, and as long as it's 10-bit, it is really squishy. You can edit with it, you can lighten, darken, color. You've really got an elastic bit of footage. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got the difference between all-eye compression and long GOP, which obviously all-eye is superior, bigger data rates in the camera, okay, every frame compression. But long GOP, as long as your computer's not old, not too old, will give you lower data rates on the card. So there's a win. There's arguments for both. Jake is just shaking his head. He only shoots. He only shoots things in RAW.
I do. I'm in a luxurious position. Yeah, I know. I know that.
If you've got to film a boring man on a stage for 8 hours, you're not going to do all-eye compression at the highest data rate. No. And that goes back to oversampling and the beauty of why it's good to shoot 4K 10-bit, even for a 1080 output, because I've oversampled my image 4 times. I get better color, better noise, ceiling, and I can push in and do stuff in the edit. I know I've gone off on a tangent there, but it all ties in to the same stuff. Yeah. Give me another question. Come on, got to be one.
JOK says, is it okay worth Is it worth the extra cost to go to full frame, or is Super 35 still relevant?
Oh,
e.g. the C300 Mark II, 3 versus the FX9 Mark.
That's a really interesting question. Would you be pissed off? Sorry, if you'd bought a C500 and you could have saved $6,000 and buy yourself a C300 Mark III now with better slow motion?
So this is the thing, and this came up a lot during the stream that when we did it. So I can completely understand why people would have thought that, like, would be angry, because like 4K 120 was the one thing that people are shouting out for with the C500.
Yeah. Anger's a very negative emotion in these times. I think we need to relax.
So I totally get it, and the C300 is an amazing camera. Like, from the tests that we've done from it looks awesome. I want to see whether it does have more dynamic range than the C500, because from Cinema 5D's lab tests it doesn't. But I'm interested to see ourselves. We've just got the kit to do that, to do tests as well. So.
That goes back to the specs, and I think the internet, you have to be a little careful, because every manufacturer gives you a load of specs.
Well, this is the thing, specs. No, this Cinema 5D actually did their own internal lab tests, so that's the only other point of reference at the moment for dynamic range comparisons between the two. So I'm intrigued to do it myself and see.
Yeah. I like the way it's modular. I think they're clever with the accessories.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I think that's good, because then you could see potentially a lower camera having the same access, the same accessories, if they keep that idea. Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting discussion vis-a-vis the FX9 though, because
I think he's more so saying about the actual format of Super 35 versus full frame, and I think to be honest with you,
I'll give you my answer.
What do you think?
Well, I think there's a place for all. I know that's really cop out, but everyone's got Super 35 glass. Super 35 glass is fairly cheap to move, and certain things, for instance, like a full frame zoom lens, are hard and expensive to do. A Primista is £40,000 for a reason, okay? Because it's hard and expensive to do a really good cinema full frame piece of glass. There's more adaptability, but there is something lovely about the aesthetics going back to where we were 15 years ago, or wherever it was with the original second 5D. There's something lovely about a full frame sensor on a wideish piece of glass at f2.8, because there's that drop, there's that sense of immersion. I don't think one is better than the other. I think they do different jobs.
Yeah,
I
think the two main benefits come down to sensor design. Obviously, if the sensor is better designed, and as a full frame sensor, it's going to perform better in dynamic range and in noise performance, all the good things people want from sensor design. And then it's also allowing you to obviously achieve those wider field of views with longer focal length lenses, and that is what it's achieving, those less shallow depth of fields. And I think people get caught up on that a bit much. I think it does change the way you shoot, but I think unless you're really on that wider end of field of view, you can achieve very similar looking images to Super 35.
I mean, you can, go on.
For me, I think the big step will be medium format. I think, like, you've tried it with the S1H and the speed booster, but like when I watch a 65 mil film,
Yeah.
that the shots that are in that make me go, oh my god, because you're getting such wide field of views and such shallow depth of field or just pure distortionless vistas, because you're obviously able to use these longer focal length lenses with so much less distortion because they can be manufactured that way because they're not as as wide. It's that to me is where the differences lie, and the way those and the way medium format makes you shoot is different, because obviously that's one thing as well. Shooting between Super 35 and full frame changes the way you shoot a lot as well.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate with this, which is the thing to say is focus. Okay, how are you going to focus on medium format?
Well,
right?
it's the thing.
If you don't have a focus puller.
So the thing I'd say is 65 has been about for how many years now? There's focus pullers have dealt well with that.
Yeah.
So it's just about managing depth of field.
No, but I'm going to suggest to you that we have face tracking with eye track on medium format. That's the only way. I want eye track. If you can give me the large format sensor with eye tracking, I think we've got a chance. The only other thing I would say about the two between Super 35 and full frame is my default setup on an S1H that you see here is to have the button under my thumb, okay, which is that one there, the button under my thumb, and I customize that to do Super 35 crop, full frame, Super 35 crop, full frame, and I do that on a full frame piece of glass. So I have the width, but then when I want to get a little bit tighter with a push, I'm in. To me, that is the best of both worlds. That allows me to make the choice. So if I'm doing a wide shot and I want full frame, I'm there, and then I'm cropping into Super 35, but I'm not losing a lot. And then I've got that, and I've got it under a hotkey. The one pain in the backside about that camera, okay, is that they haven't allowed you a button to do that. You have to go into a menu, and you have to execute a change, which is not what you want to do when it's sitting on your shoulder and you're trying to operate it, and you're thinking, I just could do now with pushing in. Oh, I can't. I've got to go into the menu, scroll down, go across into record functions, find it, select it, execute it, come out. Oh, it's too late. I need to go back to Super 35. That does not. That's what that camera needs in the menu. It needs one button push. Yeah,
that was one of the first things that we said when we.
I think that goes for any full frame camera. Actually, is that I remember many moons ago when we had reds and you had a red and the sensor you would mirror in. Do you know what I mean? Depending on the frame rates, it would go. Oh look, there's one there. I do miss them in a way. When's the Komodo coming out? No one knows. It's that mirroring in like this, and I'm kind of used to it, and I'm not against it, and that's why I think it's not an either or question. It's I'd like to have both, please, on my full frame cameras, just depending on what I need. Yeah. I've lost you, Jake. I've lost the audio.
I muted myself.
Yeah.
So getting back to the question in terms of Super 35 relevant versus full frame, I'll be interested to see if you're in the UK anyway. So last year, I can't remember which publication did it, but there was a study basically looking at all of the most rented cameras in the UK, and surprise, surprise, FS7 at the top. So if you're a working cameraman, that is a big part of what just going to drive your purchase, because as much as we love to talk about specs and everything and usability, these cameras as investments for your business that's what they are. Like they're there to make you money as well as you make your life easier in terms of when you're actually working. So I think what I'm interested to see is how and where the C300 Mark III sits, because obviously the original C300 was hugely popular, massively rented. It was the FS7 of its time until that came out, and then the FS7 took over from that, and the C400 Mark II is done well, but I don't think it's done as well as the FS7 because of the price point of it initially when it came out. It was so much greater than the FS7 and had several drawbacks in comparison. So I'm interested to see where the FX9 sits in now that FS7 is being not phased out, but a lot of rental, we sell to all the big rentals in the UK, and a lot of them have picked up a lot of FX9s because that's what people are asking for. So that trend will determine what camera you should look into purchasing as well. So I'm interested to see where, once the C300 comes out, how many people are actually asking for this, in theory, higher quality sensor than its more expensive counterparts. Obviously, because it's so much cheaper than the other offerings. That's where it comes in. It's like at that price point, do you want to pay the extra to go up to an FX9, or do you compromise, put the money more into glass, more into audio, more into everything else? It's just I think at the moment it's a difficult recommendation unless you're set on having internal RAW, having the ability to have that camera so small in comparison to the FX9. In fact, you can get it on these gimbals without having to worry about where the lenses are and everything. It's a big difference.
But I think my opinion was, are these I don't know, has the single-handed gimbal ruined camera design?
No, because I would never ever suggest anyone to put this camera on a single grip gimbal.
No, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm no. But the C300 Mark III in its smallest form, stripped down of everything. They've kind of built that they're going for that box again, like the Keen Edge. Like, you think about all these box cameras. The designers go, or one of their criteria on their list of camera design, it's not can it be shoulder mounted, because we all have to go and buy rigs to make them shoulder mounted. It's normally, will it fit on a gimbal? And
I don't know. I think the C300, because the form factor hasn't changed that much from the original C300. They've just taken what people have complained about in terms of making it super top heavy, because that's what the original one and the 2 did. You had to have that monitor on the top, and then you had the XLRs there. So I mean, the amount of rigs I did back in the day when that was relevant, where you had to put the monitor at the back, you had the XLRs at the back. It was just it was a whole lot of faff to get it back there.
But here's a crazy idea. What about if that second module that slots on was just built in, and we had a shoulder mount like an Almira, except
because they want to give people the option. That's why.
But go and buy an R5.
No. Because
big S1.
No.
That's where I think it's changed. I think everyone now has a cheap camera, ready in the corner, sitting on the gimbal.
I don't know.
And then it's almost easy. It's like we're almost like we're buying stuff. I mean, this is me going off tangent here, but I'm not saying buy less stuff. In fact, I'm probably saying buy more stuff. But it's almost like if you've got these little cameras that are very good and they can just go and do that one take that you need, well, that's that one job done.
Yeah.
Something else with bigger glass on, I actually want it up here, and I need audio and I need other stuff, power, and I need to run external monitors and all of that stuff. That compromise of going for that gimbal, I think sometimes, and this goes for any manufacturer, is sometimes they get confused. I think there's a lack of purpose.
Yeah, I think the only compromise with the Canon for how it sits on your shoulder is literally where the audio dials are placed.
Yes, because I saw that.
They're fine. Otherwise, it's
they had
nice.
Because I saw one of those exactly where my eye would be, where the back of the head would be.
Back of the head, yeah, and the actual control dials for channel 1 and 2 are actually on the right side of the camera. So you can't see anything. You have to get used to putting your hand like back here.
Maybe we're being old-fashioned. Maybe the new breed of camera person will have a backhand, a longer head, and they can just reach.
I think what they need to do is, I think it's the module. Which one is it? One of the modules has audio controls on the other side, so it's actually towards where you're regularly operating. Being able to change it so you can control channel 1 and 2 from that instead of 3 and 4, which is what they're for. That'd be massive, and that would change how that camera can be operated. But otherwise, because I mean they've come leaps and bounds over what they used to be like. But the FS7 is so easy, and the FX9 is so easy just to go. And for most people, just sling that straight on your shoulder out of the box. It's not great, but it works. It works enough.
I mean, for me, it needs at the very minimum. I mean, that's the core. That's the core box at the back. Okay. So I need a bit more space here. Do you know what I mean? For it to sit on the shoulder.
Yeah.
It just so happened, like Blue Peter, I had one already built. And then the control panel, which will be a touch screen and an AF pushing point at the back. And then if I have a longer lens, I just slide my balance point forward if I've got glass out the front. And you'll notice I've got a Chameleon Pro because I need a decent EVF. In fact, if there's anything that manufacturers don't build, it's where is our £1,000 manufacturer-backed EVF with an SDI and an HDMI. And don't say Blackmagic, because I want one that I can use on any camera. Yeah, you can if you cut the back off it.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, it seems to me that I always wondered, right? Why couldn't we take, like, the G9 has got the most fabulous optical viewfinder. Okay, I only want that. I don't need that. I just want that in a metal box with an Arri rosette on the side. That's all. That's all I need with some inputs, you know. But anyway, I'm sure in time it will come.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Kieran asks on YouTube, can you tell us best way to get great audio for a documentary with a small crew? Let's say 2. Thanks.
Just say 2. Great audio. It slightly depends on how many peeps you are wanting to get audio from. But if there's only 2 of you, one a camera person and a sound person, you've got to live in each other's boots. I did a commercial when we went around London, and we had 2 principal actors, and there actually was, I did hire a sound person and myself, mainly because there was so much to do. And I will go back to your question, but I will also say, with sound, you want to build your knowledge, and you want to gather your bits, and you want to be able to do it yourself, because A, you save money, and B, you learn. And then when you have a bigger budget, you can hire a professional to do the boom pole and sound it for you, and you then know what to say to them and understand what they're saying to you. So it's not one replaces the other. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. But on that shoot, where we were a small crew, we were going all around London, very noisy, very different levels of audio. We actually were belt and braces, and that we had a lav hidden on each of our talent, and we had a boom mic as well. And we ran them all at the same time, okay? And then we sent a scratch track, if you like, back to the camera, which was actually the S1H, because it was heavy, and I was there all day. So back to my S1H, and that was mixed by a sound person with a little mixer, and they were throwing that back at me, okay? So I had, in effect, actually I had a mic on camera too, because I'm belt and braces, I'm backup. So I had 4 sources of audio. And we were in little rooms, and we were out on Piccadilly Circus, or we were out on the river. So we had very different noise levels in different environments. And if you think about it, I had 4 different sources to pick from. The one on camera was really a backup. If everything else goes wrong, it's not going to be in proximity close enough to my source unless I'm filming here and they're here, okay? Because the further they get away, obviously the ambient sound is going to crowd out my hero sound. So the one on camera is just a get out of jail or a background noise feed, if you like, scratch track. And then the track that's coming in from his mixer is pretty good, but it's not perfect. So when I got into the edit, when I got into FCPX, I then had these four channels of audio that I could then pick and choose and mix depending on which mic sounded better in which environment. I hope that makes sense. So audio is all about redundancy, and it's all about options. If you don't have a recorder hidden behind a flower pot when you should have done, you haven't got that source. So you just carry as many sources as you can. You can hide the lav on the table. You can put it in a hat. You can put that mic anywhere you want. You can build it into furniture. You can, it depends what you're shooting and what you're doing. But the clever thing, and remember to get footage where you don't see their mouth. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean, in the edit, if you can't see me talking, you don't know what I'm saying, that means that I can cut to cover things. Okay, so you get footage of it. When you see an interview and you've got footage of the back of their ear and everything else is out of focus. I tell you what, Kirsty and Phil's a wonderful example. There's always a shot on location when they're outside and there's a flower in focus, and you can see them in the background, totally out of focus. Now that is quite obviously an audio cut point, okay? Because we're far enough away to know it's them, but we're not close enough to see their lips moving because it's so soft. And that is something else to shoot. That's learning to shoot around that for your edit. So 4 sources, and then I would edit in the mix. I would then listen to which was better, and I'd bounce between them. And if you think about it, if you've got a boom, maybe a lav or 2, and maybe a mic on the camera, you've also got a lovely mix because you've got your ambient and you've got your hero audio, and then you can decide what to prioritize in your edit when you layer it up like a pastrami sandwich, as I suggested last time, Jake. Lots of layers.
Yeah.
There you go. I hope that helps.
All right. So I'm trying to think. I had this question the other day from another customer.
Don't think.
About a matte box that allows you to use screw-in filters, and I can't remember which one it was, but I'm looking and find. Do you know what it is?
A matte box are you talking about? Oh, God.
A matte box that allows you to screw the filters in the front, not use like 4x4, 4x6.
Yes, it's that very affordable brand beginning with T.
Is it? Does that do it? That's what I just put in the chat, and then I was looking. They do it. I thought so.
But there is one caveat with that, which I didn't buy. Is it only goes up to?
Is it 77?
Yeah, it doesn't go quite as big as you want. They messed up because it should have gone one size higher. Because it doesn't go to 90. I don't think it goes to. It's 82 or 90, 94. It doesn't go.
It says 82 is the biggest adapter ring they've got here.
Yeah, but it won't go above. So it
okay, I was right. So yeah, just just tilt a matte box. It's like a mini matte box.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. I was right. I deleted it because I wanted to double check.
I'm here for you. Trivia.
So, random question. As a professional, what insurance company do you go with? If you can say, and or what sort of things would you look for to be covered when looking for insurance?
I'm probably radically underinsured. I do have insurance. I also have public liability insurance, which is actually quite important as a professional. That is, if someone comes to grief, it's actually more important than the insurance for your kit, because you need public liability. If something terrible happens on your shoot, you get to keep your home, etc. It gives you that comfort. And then obviously the kit. What I would say about insurance for kit, I think I was Towergate I used going back in the day, various other ones. But what I would say about your kit is remember the depreciation, which is perhaps not. What cost you a load of money 5 years later is worth this. And to replace it, what do you need? Do you need to spend all that money again? Or could you actually replace it? Has that curve done that? And the cost curve and the insurance curve, well, it's about making sure that you feel you've got enough to replace your gear if it all gets nicked, so you can go to work. That's what insurance is for. It's a personal choice as to where you place that value.
Have you ever used the Siriu lens?
The anamorphic. Do you know what? I've hovered above the buy button several times, and I keep thinking, shall I not? In theory, it's enormously tempting.
It looks really good.
Yeah,
I saw it a couple of times at a trade show. And we are trying to sell it at some point. I'm not sure. I want to see a proper production.
And I suppose I really want them to do it in L mount. They do it in E mount.
So in theory, it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do it in E, and if they'd done an L one, I probably would have pushed the button. It's a 1.3 squeeze, so it's not the same as the Vason, which is 1.8. You've actually got me onto one of my favourite topics, which is affordable anamorphic for all, please, because the world looks better stretched. I've got the adapter, which I showed you last week, for my MKs, which is the SLR Magic 82 front element, which gives you that 1.3 squeeze on the MKs. But the Siri has advantages in that it's small enough that it could run on mirrorless. You can put it on a Z cam. It's this big. Wish it was more than 1.3, but I'll take 1.3. It needs a gear. It needs gears on it. It doesn't have gears.
Yeah,
that's what I find. Problem. I find that you've got to get a plastic adapter or something.
Gear,
yeah, you've got to put some gears on it. They should have put gears on it in the factory because it's a video.
Yeah, I don't know why they've done it. They've kind of positioned it more as a stills lens, which is kind of bizarre. But yeah, it looks. Awesome
it's a very affordable price. There's always talk every year about manufacturers bringing out sub-Orion priced anamorphics. If an Orion is, well, you can't get them, but if an Orion is about 8-9 grand and the Siri is 600 and the Vason's about 2.5.
There's been rumblings of
Samyang,
of a very famous lens company.
Another one.
It's Samyang. So there's been rumblings of Samyang doing them for ages. I remember seeing a still on part of like a bunch of lens groups on Facebook, and there was a still of them testing it. But we haven't seen it, and we haven't seen. That's literally all I've seen. So, but that would be amazing if they could do if they could do something like sub $5,000 that's still 2 times, that's still available in EFPL, that kind of stuff. It'd be fantastic.
But also working with these mirrorless mounts. Let's have an L mount one. Let's have an E mount one. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if they design it around that flange distance anyway, then they can do what like CP3s and zines do, where they just have the extension for E and L and everything. So that's not. Yeah,
I mean, I have a love-hate with anamorphics, because I want to buy a monstrosity off the internet and build it up, but at the same time, I need to be able to pull focus and I need it to work. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be functional so that you could actually shoot a scene with it. But I think the series is really exciting. I honestly liked it. I will probably push buy on that button, or look for that, go back to that button and try not to. Yeah.
There's some beautiful taken lens and like projector anamorphic combinations out there. It's just like you say, it takes some working to get them.
It takes too much work, and I have to say, if at around 600 quid, you've got a 1.3 that can do all of that. No, but the Siri.
It's
it's not, but it's only a 1.3.
Yeah.
And I think the difference that people should understand is that's why Vazen are interesting, because it's 1.8. Okay, it's not 2, but it has more of that. It has more of the qualities of a true anamorphic because it's 1.8 and not 1.3. I personally believe everything should have streaks in it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting part of the market.
It is. I think it's going to be a growing part as well, because we all love it. And if you're making a short feature, or even commercials now, you can see it on TV. Obviously not now, because no one's making anything, but you could see it. You can see the influence of anamorphics on your TV adverts. Lots and lots of commercials they're selling in as having that quality, the bars at the top, and that stretched, aesthetic. Yeah.
The follow focus you've got on the FX9, that was the one you had the other day. That was the Edelkron one, wasn't it?
Yes, and there's a reason for that, because it allows me to keep my front handles, and again, like Blue Peter.
So
that's the front element of my rig that just pops straight off. So that would just see.
What other ones do you use?
Oh God, I've got loads. I've got the wooden camera one, which is good. I've got the little baby tilter that's 99 quid. You know, the cheap one. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good as well. And then I've got a very expensive one from Bright Tangerine, which has even got the ability to close the gearing down a bit. So if you've got a lens that has a 300-degree turn, which is too much to have on the shoulder, it will bring it down to 200. So it just means that I don't have to break my wrist if I need to pull focus.
Yeah, if you're looking at like other budget options as well, Shoot 35 do a really, really nice kind of like middle of the range kind of sized follow focus, and that's really well built for the price. But yeah, if you want something super light, then the other chrome and the tilt are good options as well.
They're good options. And also, because I've got a lot of medium format glass, 645 glass with a speed booster to E mount and a speed booster to L mount. That's obviously manual. You put gears on it and then you play with it that way. Yeah. It's an endless smorgasbord of expense. I'm not allowed to buy anything because I'm not working. So don't mention all these nice things. Got to earn some money.
All right. So Severus J asks, how do you deal with audio delay between two different audio sources like camera mic and Laws? I presume.
Well, you shouldn't really get a delay with a decent feed in or a decent wireless system. There shouldn't really be a delay. Mm-hmm. You might sometimes get a tiny delay with an external recorder or going into another device, but you shouldn't. I mean, I don't have any noticeable delay on this with the Sennheisers going wirelessly. There isn't a delay as such. And a delay will be introduced if I was to run it through a tortuous SDI extension to an off-camera recorder and then doing something else. That could create a delay, and then you could time it out in the software on the recorder, be it Atomos or sound devices. You could find a way to delay that. But solo shooter, wireless Sennheiser, no delay, none that you would notice of. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah. With the GH5, when you're recording in 4:3 mode, you can just use you can just use a lens that covers the sensor, and it will just record it, and then you can just that's what I thought.
Yes, you can. Absolutely, and of course that camera actually de-squeezes on the internal little EVF. That does actually just de-squeeze in camera just to show it to you, which is something the very expensive FX9 will not do. You need a Shinobi, which is another good.
That's all the questions we've got at the moment, mate.
Fantastic. I think we've covered a lot of ground. It's good.
Yeah, it's an hour and
I like that.
I think
Go
it's about an
wild.
hour
Go,
and-
go wide. Go
hour and
wide,
15.
people. Yes. Well, thank you for having me.
All right,
It's
mate.
been great
Pleasure
to
as
be here.
always.
I know we're off next week because it's a very important week for you, isn't it?
Not next week.
Is it a week after your
Week
birthday?
after.
There you go. Okay. But I think I'm back in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, whatever. So
Awesome.
if you'll have me back, that'd
Yeah,
be
of
great.
course. Absolutely, dude. It's a
All right, man.
pleasure as always. Awesome, guys. Any other questions? Leave them in the YouTube. Leave them on the Discord, and one of us will answer them.
Yes, someone will rant back at you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us,
Take
guys.
care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.